Good afternoon. I'm Kevin Wellman. I'm CEO at the Chartered Institute of Plumbing and Heating Engineering. It's an educational charity that dates back to 1906. Now, just to assure you, I've not been there since then, but it does feel as if it's been a long time. But as an educational charity, we're here to promote plumbing and heating in the public interest, and we do that through our support from members. We have 7,500 members, and a manifesto that the public has access to as well.
My name is Mark Conacher. I'm Managing Director of a company called SENSTEC USA. SENSTEC is an anti-slip shower tray like no other. Our stand is just over there if you want to go and see SENSTEC. Highly encourage that. My background, really I've been doing that SENSTEC for a couple of years now, but my background is based in installation. I ran an installation company on the east coast of Scotland in Dundee for 30 years. Started as a one-man band and grew that up into a multi-team business.
Hi, I'm James. I work for a company called Simpro. We're a job management company that supports trades digitalising their processes. My background comes from the trade as well. I used to also have a plumbing and heating business that I sold back in 2018.
So, James, let's start with you, because you, as you just said, you started out your career as a tradie. Can you tell us how you got started in your early career, and kind of how did that lead you into the role that you have now in a very different industry, but a leadership role nonetheless?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question, actually. The short version is I was doing my A-levels back in the day when there were A-levels and not AS. Shows my age, but and we were getting the garage converted into a bedroom and bathroom. Got chatting with the plumber. Plumber said, "Do you fancy doing a week's work experience?" So I went and done a week with him, and then never went back to finish my A-levels. Ended up doing a 4-year apprenticeship with him, and then once I got qualified, went on to British Gas for a little while, realised that wasn't for me, went back to him, and then, just ended up started building a business from there.
When did you go independent and set up your own business?
When I left British Gas, I went back to my old boss. I realised that even though British Gas wasn't for me, my old boss was never going to grow from being a one-man band.
Yeah.
So I'd learned some stuff at British Gas, which I kind of liked, but I liked being that small, customer-centric approach. But I honestly thought I could do it better myself. I think I was about 21 when I went out on my own, and
so still pretty young then, yeah.
Yeah, 21, and then I think I brought on my first employee at 23. So it was a lot of subcontracting to begin with, finding my feet, making loads of mistakes, but it was good fun.
So what kind of led you to the jump from being a tradesperson, developing that business to a point where actually someone wants to buy it, and then going into software of all things?
For me, I got to a point, so I was employing about 35 people, and we'd moved away from, we were still doing residential, one-off bathroom installations and things like that. We'd moved into new build as well, so a completely different beast in itself. And I was losing the motivation to go to work every morning because I didn't need to go, and I was off the tools. It was kind of moving itself. And in developing the business, I'd learned that the software that I was using at the time was allowing me to scale without it necessarily being all in my head. I always say, I slept less when I had 5 engineers than when I had 35 engineers, because I had better processes in place when I had 35 engineers than when I had 5. But fundamentally, I just got talking to some people, and they were like, "You're in your mid-30s, go try something else. If it doesn't work, come back." And I ended up selling it and going enjoying a good year of my life traveling the world, and then realisation hit and money run out, so I came back to work
again. Mark, a bit like James, you set up your own business. How did that come about? What got you started out, and then we can talk a little bit about your latter career in a moment. But what got you started out in the first place?
I started out from leaving school. 15 years old. I just wanted away from school. I just wanted to work. That was, I had a family. My brother had lots of qualifications. He'd went to college, all these O grades, all these O levels, A levels, all this, and was unemployed. I had another brother who had a couple of O grades and was flying. So that was what I had in front of me. And I just wanted to get out and work. I didn't see school as being really a big deal. And so at that time, back in 1985, the government YTS was the route. That was the only thing that was really there in front of me for that age. And so that's what I did. And to leave school, my mum says, okay, well, you can leave school, but you have to get a job. So the only thing was YTS. What am I going to do? Well, joinery seemed to be the cleanest kind of thing to do. So that's why I jumped. I thought I'll be a joiner. And so that's what I did. I did a year's YTS, started my time. You know what? I turned up at the YTS, and at that time, the YTS was really just about the government lowering unemployment figures, getting all these youth off of unemployment. But then when the businesses took on the YTSs, they saw it as it was just labor for free. Do you know what I mean? So they took on all these guys. And so when I turned up at this company, they had 10 YTS people. And I thought, well, there's no way 10 of us are getting taken on at the end of this. And so I decided, you know what, I'm going to have to be the best. It's my only chance. And so that's what I did. And so from there, I got my apprenticeship. And so then I served my time. And I moved my apprenticeship once within there because it wasn't the right fit for me. But eventually found the right guy who helped me and motivate me and grew me into a decent tradesman. And so I worked with him for however many years, and eventually he was coming to retirement. And so I had to think about what I was going to do. And then MFI came along and said, you know what, you could be an installer for us. You need to start your own little micro business. And so that's what I did. And I became an installer for them, and whenever it was, 1995, something like that. And that was the beginning.
So that was Liberty Fitting.
That was Liberty Fitting.
Tell us about Liberty's kind of journey and the freedom that allowed you to do something which I think is quite incredible. Well, I won't spoil it. So tell the audience.
So I started Liberty, as I say, around about 1995, I think it was, but just a sole trader. And I carried on. I grew the business, but it was just a business within myself. There was subcontractors. I brought people in. I decided to have a grown-up business, and we went limited in 2003. Again, various different employees coming in that I brought on, but mostly subcontractors. But then in 2008, there was a financial crash, and towards the end of 2008, MFI went bust. And suddenly I realized that I'd had all of this work, more work than I could handle, and overnight I was due a whole load of money that I was never going to see. I had all this debt because I had to pay out all the subcontractors for the work that was outstanding. I had no work, and nobody knew who I was, and that was daunting. But I recovered from that and started again. But I learned that not to put all my eggs in one basket and to try and diversify in how I got my work. And I did that, and the company started, it recovered from it. But I obviously learned something because it ends up the conversations actually only started about a year later. That I wanted something, and I started having these discussions with my wife about we need to do something different. What can we do? And emigrating to a different country came up into the conversation, as it does. And so I decided to emigrate to Vancouver in Canada. And so when I made that decision, it was all going to be great. Everybody's, no, let's do this. But I had this nagging thing in the back of my mind that there was so many people made a lot of money off of what I did, of installing kitchens and bathrooms. And that really didn't sit well with me. So I made the decision to bring in a director to run the day-to-day and the installations. And I would go to Canada, and I don't know what I was going to do. I just decided, we'll wait and see. I'll maybe consult to my own company. But because I split it, it allowed me to concentrate on the business side of things. And I started learning about business, and I started learning about marketing. And that then allowed me to grow the company in Dundee. So for, 14 years, I ran this company, ended up lots of awards and everyone won for the work that we were doing. But I ran that company in Dundee from Vancouver for about 14 years.
So business coaches quite often talk about stepping out of a business and able to work on the business. You stepped out of it and then moved 10 time zones away. That's pretty incredible. Kevin, coming to you, from your perspective as a professional institute, we've heard a couple of amazing progression stories there. What are the things which professionals need, from your view as a professional institute, to carry on progressing?
Yeah, last year I actually carried out a lecture, and the title was "Who Needs University When Apprenticeships Are Better?" And that to me speaks volumes, because if you can get a formal and a recognised apprenticeship under your belt, that really does set you apart and gives you lots of opportunities. But from my own personal point of view, I'm proud to be a qualified plumber. I was offered 2 apprenticeships in plumbing as a youngster, so my first decision in life was to decide which apprenticeship to opt for. Now, I recognise that not everybody has that same opportunity, but when you then think about it, after the apprenticeship and the experience comes in, then there's so many different directions you can go into, whether that be lecturing, manufacturing. I received an email from a member, a long-standing member, about 10 days ago, and he said, "I've got to tell you about my journey." He started off as a plumbing apprentice. Then he was fortunate enough to be taken on by a design consultancy company, and he spent the rest of his career doing design consultancy services. Now, that's another example where people can go into that sort of arena. So the opportunities are enormous for those people who want to take that chance, but are really keen to have that hunger to learn from an education point of view.
Throwing a kind of question out to all the panelists, really. What are the kind of continuous learning and kind of upskilling that you embraced when you were in the trades? And kind of how do you think the best way to approach it is for someone they're earning a living primarily, and the day job's got to be the priority? But how do they also embrace upskilling?
Yeah, it's quite difficult to do your day job and to learn. And I think it just comes down to the individual as to how far they want to go. That on-the-job training that apprentices get. I mean, when you're an apprentice, you go away to the college or whatever. And, I just really found that a waste of time. I learned so much more when I was with my mentor, with my journeyman, and that was really important. But how good he was inspired me when I became fully qualified and kept wanting to push myself. At that time, when my time was just out, there wasn't really a lot of options in front of me to go and be better at my skills. It was what it was, and then it was just through repetition. That's how I grew. The different angle for me in growing was that business side. Was when I stepped off the tools. That's when I learned a whole lot of other skills, which, I think because there's a lot of sole traders out there, you start as an apprentice, you become a sole trader. There is a gap missing about growing a business, and that's really, again, growing a business is I firmly believe is what's going to help the apprenticeship problem that we have, because it's these micro businesses that not refuse in a negative way, but don't want to take on an apprentice. That's an issue. We need to be able to grow businesses and have multi-team businesses or bigger companies that can take on apprentices and can shoulder the burden of training.
Yeah.
Because there's a cost to that. And it's okay, you could pay for all the training through government schemes, but small businesses have to incur that cost of having an apprentice, training him when he's not earning you money. And when you're a sole trader, that is very difficult. And
and it's a bit of a vicious cycle, isn't it? Because the busier you are, because the fewer installation businesses are, the less opportunity there is to provide that oversight and that mentorship.
We need to grow. There's a facility to grow businesses bigger to help shoulder that burden. Comes from maybe teaching business skills somewhere in there to sole traders, because they're stuck where they are. They know what they know. Yeah.
I'm going to bring us back to the theme of how best to kind of get into learning. Kevin,
I've got some thoughts on that as well, and I will come back to the business thing, much to your horror. But essentially, until you get that the appetite, the hunger to actually train and be greater educated, it's going to be so difficult. We have so many opportunities here. You look around today, the buzz of excitement for everybody visiting the stands and learning more about products. That's all part of CPD that we certainly want to encourage. I want to take that a step further and have mandated CPD so that it's a level playing field for everybody. Now, the other thing that Mark quite rightly said is that when we talk about training and apprenticeships for sole traders, micro SMEs, the industry is probably comprised of 70, maybe 75% micro SMEs. We need to provide more support and help for them. And during my many discussions today, what we've been saying is manufacturers could help by the levy that they actually put towards the apprenticeship levy. If that could go into a skills pot for the plumbing industry, then we could be saying, let's start to use that for the micro SMEs, because the way the apprenticeship levy works at the moment is for the large turnover companies to benefit from. Micro SMEs don't have a look in, and that's where we think that if that money is still utilised, but utilised for the betterment of the plumbing and heating sector, that won't be costing the government anything, and that will be proposals that I'd love to get your support here today for that as well, because that's something which is really possible that we could take as a call to action from this particular show.
Thanks, Kevin. I'm going to come back to James now, because you said something which I thought was really interesting about it being more stressful having 5 employees than 35. Presumably there were some skills that you gained in that period that made it less stressful. How did you gain those skills, and what were they?
Yeah, I think for me, I didn't realise until I was about 28, 29, how I retained information. So I went through school, muddled through school, didn't really get any decent grades. I was doing my A-levels, but I wasn't going to get anywhere with them. I hit sort of 28, 29 and realised that I learned through visual representation rather than words. So for me, once I understood that, I'd done, say, 5, 6 years of building a business but not getting anywhere, or just having 2 or 3 people plodding along, life's all right. And then realising that actually I need to learn a whole new skill. To your point, you go from being a very good tradesperson to a pretty rubbish business owner because you spent such a long period of time being a really good tradesperson. You've almost got to start again and learn how to run a business. And that's quite scary. And I think to your point, that's why quite a lot of businesses don't move out of that micro SME phase, because A, you need a really big reality check with yourself that, do I want to make this jump? But also B, you've got to be prepared to learn a whole new skill and step away from the skill that you're really good at.
I think we talked a lot about gaining new skills, but I want to ask you about your destination role and how actually your old skills come in useful in the role that you have now. So, does your time as a tradie help you in your current role within a software company? Absolutely.
I mean, I look after partnerships in the UK for Simpro Group, so that's Simpro and Big Change. Most of my work, we were just saying offline, weren't we? It's behind the scenes, you don't see it. But it's effectively glorified relationship building. You learn that from being a tradesperson. You go around to a customer's house, you're giving them a quote for a bathroom. You learn how to relate to someone. You can engage with someone within the first couple of seconds, get their personality, and it just becomes a muscle memory that you don't realise you're doing it. So when you go through, if you were to join a larger software company, you'd go through all sorts of different types of training. One of them's like persona training, so you understand different types of persona, but it's a natural thing that you have as a trade person because you can talk to anyone. So for me, there's all those soft skills that you learn as a tradesman that you don't even think as skills because you're currently fitting a bathroom. But being able to tell that customer, sorry, the bath's not going to work tonight because I'm missing a part, you'll be all right tonight, like it'll be okay in the morning, and softening that expectation to the customer. They're all soft skills that will help you outside if you decided to transition out.
Mark, you've made a further jump, haven't you, from kind of running a business 10 time zones away into doing something a little closer to home, but very different. Yes. Tell us what that final jump has been, and then the same question to you. How does your time in the trade help you do what you're doing now?
So yeah, I came to a point within my company that I needed something different. With everybody that I had within that company, the installation company, I felt I'd gone as far as I could go without really changing. Something dramatic had to change, and everybody was happy. And so I felt my hunger was actually the problem, and I needed to step away from the company and find something different, because, as I said, these guys were all working, they all had jobs. Because I was hungry, I didn't want to disrupt any of that. So I decided to step away, and a gentleman in the industry from Classic Marble, managing director of Classic Marble, who I've known for a long time, Christopher Hackett, found out what I'd done and approached me and asked me if I would be interested in spearheading the product SENSTEC into the United States. And why did Christopher come to me? I don't know. But really, probably I could only but think of, what did I learn? What I learned from my installation side and growing that and making that step from being, there's lots of great installers out there, lots of great installation companies. So what makes you different? It's not going to be in installation. It's not going to be necessarily the quality of those skills. It's going to be something different. So you have to find ways of standing out. And in doing that with Liberty, that's kind of what I think Christopher recognized, that I could stand out. I wasn't frightened to face a camera. I wasn't frightened to push myself out of my comfort zone. And to take a product to somewhere like the United States is a massive step. I was already in Vancouver, so I had half a clue about the mentality of North America. And so that's what we did. We took that over there. And I also think what I bring to the table is a huge knowledge of installers and installation and how the impact they can have with customers. I know there's another surveys been done about how much installers impact what a customer buys, and there's nothing truer than that survey. And so I'm able to bring that side of things to that job, which under normal circumstances isn't normally an ex-installer that's running a shower tray company or pushing a shower tray company in the United States. And so, yeah, it's these skills, installation, but really about standing out and being different.
I mean, in my experience of the wider bathroom industry, some of the best people in business development within manufacturers have that background in the trade. So, yeah, it's a very obvious progression route. Looking back to the beginning, Kevin, and apprenticeships, which I know is a real passion for you, particularly around plumbing. How can the wider industry support apprenticeships? What's needed to really supercharge the apprenticeships piece and getting people in?
Yeah, again, it's all down to communications, because we are trying to explain to employers, or we're doing a very good job in talking to employers to encourage them to take up apprenticeships or apprentices. We're engaging with the endpoint assessment organisations, with the awarding bodies like City and Guilds, but also we're talking to colleges. So we need industry buy-in collectively by everybody. So colleges play an important role in this, but we want to raise standards as well. So what I'm hoping is our AGM tomorrow is that the members will approve some new bylaws which will allow us to introduce a category to registered trainers, because we believe that they need proper recognition for their qualifications, for their experience as well. So again, with all of this, we need industry buy-in, and the more people that can then say, yes, we want to get access to an apprentice to employ them, maybe through a group apprenticeship scheme, so they don't have to take on that liability for 4 years or 3.5 years. They could maybe have somebody on their books for 6 months, and then they go to another company. If that's also sponsored through manufacturers, there's a supporting role by everybody to really make apprenticeships happen. But the other key thing with the level 3 apprenticeship that we are developing, I want to bring the word engineer back into apprenticeship. So it will be a plumbing engineer apprenticeship, because we all need to help to raise and elevate the status of plumbing. And then if we deem it to be a proper engineering discipline, then that should help the industry for the future.
Yeah, I'm really pleased to hear you say about it becoming a prestige profession, because my next question to the whole panel really was going to be about stigma of choosing the apprenticeship route and the trades route rather than going through A levels, university. You made that jump, James, because you were on the university track, if you like, and you made the jump. Did you experience stigma at the time? Were your parents like, what are you doing? Or what was the dynamic there?
I didn't experience it that much. I'll be honest with you. I think it's more, for me, it was more with your mates. Like, if you're finishing work late, you turn up to the pub, you're in your work outfit where you can be covered in God knows what, and they're rocking up in a suit, even though if you looked at it on paper, you're probably more successful than them in other areas. You know, you have a business all of your own, they're working for someone. I think there's a slight stigma around that. The professionalism I agree with. I think that you need to, like, the profile needs to be raised. What we do, and I use the word we because I am qualified, so I can still lean on that one. What we do is a very hard skill. It's also split between different verticals. You've got residential, commercial. You know, you could go into a new build element of it. It's very multifaceted. So actually, we should be promoting and celebrating those apprentices that come through the program.
Yeah, I mean, Mark, you've written a lot about this, haven't you? And you're on BICB's strategic advisory board to try and break down stigma and so on. Are we really still in a situation where, you know, there is a kind of social stigma attached?
I think we are. I think there is an element of, you know, back in my day it was you better sticking at school or you'll end up on a building site, and that's hard. That's a hard one to break down. We need to trying to get those positive conversations around the dinner table about apprenticeships. Okay, us sitting here speaking about apprenticeships, but we need to the mums and dads need to be talking about it as well. And but yeah, I think that stigma is there. Schools could do a lot more to help that side of things. Whether, you know what, I remember saying one time that everybody was hung up on this word degree, and whether maybe it's the wording. Maybe we need to change apprenticeships to a degree. Do you know what I mean? In joinery or whatever it is. Maybe it's just language that's causing that thing. I think it is still there until the building. All this goes right back to the beginning. Until the building blocks are right. Until it's positive at the beginning when we're at school. They've taken it. No, who does woodwork at school? Who does metalwork? No, my understanding is all that's just getting stripped away. And so I think if we could get the schools thinking correctly, then the conversation, and it becomes a more positive job to go towards.
Yeah.
It's not for everybody. No, university is not for everybody. And some people learn about your hands, your visual, that kind of thing. It's definitely, we need mentors out there as well to promote mentors to get young people to recognise and latch onto, for sure.
Kevin, CIPHE is very much leading the charge in terms of professionalisation. How's the sector kind of evolving around recognition, and what do individuals need to do to stand out?
I think that a key thing is to certainly grow your knowledge through CPD, most definitely for that. I think it's a really good point, Mark, about learning support and mentoring. And so with the support from the Worship Company of Plumbers, we've actually launched a PPDS scheme, which is Plumbing Professionals Development Scheme. And the idea there is that we'll be providing membership support and mentoring support for 10 years for emerging talent. And so again, by getting industry to help and support and nurture that, we're bringing out the best talent in the UK, because quite often we can all get quite negative about the impact of poor plumbing. But to witness the great work that goes on at the skills competitions, within the apprenticeship side of things as well, that's what we need to shout about an awful lot more.
Thanks, Kevin. Just one final question to each of you to round up. If you were giving one piece of advice to your younger self at the start of your career, what would it be? We'll give Kevin time to think about it and start with James.
Thanks for that one. It's going to sound really corny. You have two ears and one mouth. There's a reason. If I'd have listened more when I was younger, I'd have been further forward, or I would have got where I got to quicker. And I think also, just off that, it's surround yourself with people that are smarter than you in various different subjects. The more you can learn, the more you can absorb, the more you can work out where you want to go.
That's a brilliant piece of advice. Thanks, James.
A teenager, listen. That's a new one. I think...
there speaks the father of a daughter.
No, I think, you know what? Young people, I think they tend to look very short term. I think they need to learn to look a little bit further ahead. That if we said that by the time you're 35, you're going to have everything that you wanted to have through starting a trade, and you could have your own business by then, but that's really what needs to change. Is look longer term, and you know, don't be afraid to stand out in what you do. You'll learn a trade. You will be a joiner. You'll be an electrician. You'll be a plumber, and you'll be great at it. But so will a lot of other people. And so, how do you separate yourself from everybody else? You need to find ways of standing out, and that latches into it's not what you know, it's who you know. You are who you hang around with. All of these things are so important.
I think I asked for one piece of advice, but we'll let you off, Mark. You got about half a dozen there. So embrace, listen, embrace kind of delayed gratification rather than instant gratification. Kevin.
Yeah, so from my point of view, I would listen to what the great Einstein is supposed to have said many years ago, in that if he had his time all over again, he would be a plumber. I would probably change that now to say if he had his time all over again, he'd be a plumbing engineer. Thank you.
Very good. Very on brand with your messaging as well. But please show your appreciation for our panel, Kevin, Mark and James.